Okay, I've got 10 on the dot, so let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the August Real Talk about Real Estate. My name is Michelle, and I'm one of the marketing leads for the ABR designation. Today, I am joined by Cynthia DeLuca, who is a speaker, author, mentor, and coach. This month, we're talking about investing, which is super exciting because who doesn't like money? Especially making money. As a reminder, we are live, so if you have any questions or just want to say hi, leave us a like or a comment on the video. Cynthia, why don't you kick things off by giving us some background on how you got started in investing?
Sure, I would love to. So I will tell you, I guess, when I started my career in real estate, I came from a corporate background. And so it didn't take too long for me to look around and realize that there really was no retirement plan. It's always kind of been a joke in real estate of, can we retire or how do we retire? And so I realized, that our career in real estate is an excellent career. It really affords us a lot of opportunities, and it's a great way to create and produce an income and a really great income. But what you do with that income is where really the wealth can be built and achieved. And so I realized I didn't really have a 401k plan in my new real estate career. So I had to kind of create my own. So looking around trying to figure out how to create my own, I started deciding what's my long plan, right? And I always think about the tortoise and the hare. We probably all know that story of the rabbit that runs super fast and thinks it's going to win the race, but then comes this slow tortoise that takes its time and eventually does win the race. And I look at investing, and especially investing for long-term wealth, as I feel like, I guess I'm more the tortoise. There's kind of both aspects of that, and I'll touch on both of those. But looking around, we have a lot of options for investing. And there's stocks, and there's bonds, and there's mutual funds, and there's even crypto. And so, full disclosure, I do invest in all of those as well. But crypto, even a new one, and we have something I saw coming up on that, right, Michelle?
Yeah, so actually the September TBR, we're going to cover some information about crypto. So if you want to learn more, stay tuned for that.
Yeah, that's always such a hot topic. So that's exciting to hear about. Yeah, and I tell you, I always feel like you put a little bit of money into something and you're going to learn it real fast, right? So you'll figure it out.
Exactly. You're gonna be motivated because it's your money on the line.
Yeah, you tend to watch it and figure it out. So there's lots of different options of investing, but even if you don't have money invested in crypto, it's gone through ups and downs a lot, and it's very crazy, I guess you could say, of that. And really, everything is, right? The stocks and the bonds and mutual funds and everything else. So I think, after looking around at people that were in my life and looking at the ones who had kind of that long-term goal and were achieving that of wealth, or what I considered at the time of what appeared to be wealth, and the lifestyle that I wanted to achieve, real estate was where it was at, right? So I started asking a lot of questions and kind of creating my own mentorship, if you would. And, one of the things that I looked at with real estate was it tends to keep pace with inflation. And I think we've all realized that a lot in this past year, or two, that we've seen inflation go up so much, in our daily lives, from groceries to, fuel to everything, really. And so, my very first rental property that I bought a little over 20 years ago, the rent has more than tripled since I first bought that property. And so when you consider, yes, other costs do go up in owning properties and the maintenance and everything, but it really can keep at that pace of inflation, where when you look at the other types of investments and even commodities like, gold and silver and palladium and some of those other, precious metals and whatnot, they don't always keep at the pace with, pretty equal to inflation. So real estate started showing some interest to me, right? Keeping up with those rising costs and knowing that if this was a long goal for me to retire in, 20, 30, 40 years, or however long, we're each facing retirement, then I needed something that was going to be able to help me afford retirement at that time, right? I didn't know if Social Security was going to be something I could bank on or not. And we're all kind of wondering about that. So flipping, right? Flipping is something that a lot of people consider as an investment, but it really isn't something that I look as an investor, because from the investing standpoint, when you're flipping, you're creating income. So, you're buying, you're fixing up, you're turning on and reselling, but usually you're doing that in such a short time frame that the problem with that is it's taxed as income. And again, it's another way to kind of make it, to kind of make income. And so very similar to like our job or another, side job or anything like that, flipping doesn't really afford us a lot of the benefits that long-term owning does. So for me, it kind of created income and not really a job, or I've created income as a job, not really investing. So, I've done flipping as well. Again, full disclosure here, but it wasn't something that I wanted to primarily focus on, because it is, you are taxed at such a high tax rate. And there's a lot of liability and stuff as well in there. So, speaking of taxes, I'm not a tax accountant and I don't want to be one, but we do have to deal with the IRS, right? And so as the IRS, I kind of look at and say, all right, the old saying is, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. And I'm not saying the IRS is our enemy, but let's face it, we're self-employed, right, as realtors, and we have the opportunity to pay a lot of taxes or to save, on a lot of taxes. And so the IRS really gives two main incentives to the tax-paying people of the United States, and that is, if you create jobs or if you create housing, they benefit you for that. They give you incentives. And as a long-term real estate investor, you really do both of those, or you could possibly do both of those. So, learning the tax codes and really being familiar with as much as possible to go in and tweak a little bit of the things that we're doing can also give us a lot of those incentives for, the jobs and the housing. And so, once I really started diving in and learning the IRS, I had to be honest, when I started investing, I didn't want anything to do with them. I hired an accountant and said, that's their job. But again, to really kind of make sure that I was getting the most bang for my buck and that I was doing things in the right way, you follow the rules that the IRS outlines, and the IRS benefits you for that. So I hired my 14-year-old son at the time, which the IRS allows you to do, and deduct that to do our accounts receivables and, just other things along those lines. So yeah, they give you a lot of benefit. Again, that ordinary income from flipping is taxed at the highest tax bracket, but they do give you a lot of other benefits, of course, from long-term owning, which is why, more than 90% of the wealthy, millionaires plus, own real estate, because there are so many tax incentives involved in that. And it is I don't want to call it a tax shelter, but it is a benefit, but it also does have that inflationary protection that's built into it. So there's a lot of different things there with the taxes that I learned to take into consideration, which is something, if any realtor wants to become an investor or wants to work with real estate investors, they really should have a great accountant that they're working with and referring to, but also have a little bit of knowledge about the process and how it works, right, for their own incentive and for working with those buyers. So then they really have to understand, there's different types of property classes, and kind of each one of us has our own preferences. So I've, dabbled in a little bit of everything, but, there's residential from single family housing. There's pros and cons of each of these. So, with single family housing, we see considerable appreciation, right? So the prices, the values of these properties can go up, kind of unrestrained, if you will. So when you sell the property, you can sell it to a homeowner, you can sell it to another investor. There's not as much limitation. Lots of people want to live in single family homes, so there's a lot of advantage there too for renting it. But there's also some disadvantages when it's vacant. It's vacant, you don't get any income and whatnot. With multifamily, it's excellent because there's pretty much always rental income coming in, because you've got multiple units. But then I think of it as, I'm the youngest of 6 children, and I think my parents raising us taught me a lot about multifamily living because you have to have a lot of rules for everybody to get along, right? You're living in kind of together space with walls that separate you. And that's really what multifamily is. So, one person gets upset that the other person took their favorite parking space, and, you just have to, it is, yeah, there's some crazy stuff that happens in multifamily. So, and the value in multifamily, whether it's a duplex or an apartment complex, the value in multifamily is really structured around the rental income. So the appreciation doesn't happen as much as what you would see in a single family house, where the values just go sky high and appreciate, 20, 30% a year. That doesn't necessarily happen in multifamily if the rents can't be increased through that same amount, right? It's all down to the numbers. So multifamily has some restrictions with that. Commercial, there's so many different types of commercials, properties and subcategories. Getting loans to purchase a commercial property and even multifamily, larger multifamily that's deemed commercial, 5 units and more, it's not going to be as easy, and there's going to be a larger deposit down payment that's going to be required. So, that may not be a first property that someone would want to start out with investing, but commercial also has its pros, right? When it's occupied, it's usually occupied for years to come, right? You don't have the vacancy as much. But even with that, there's industrial, there's office space, there's retail, there's doctor's offices, there's all kinds of different categories within commercial. So, we all kind of find our own little niche, I guess you could say, that we prefer or like, or, have our little categories, I guess, within all these different types of properties. And then kind of the newest maybe one that really has sparked a lot of interest are these vacation rentals, right? So a lot of people have bought these vacation rentals, and especially since, the start of the pandemic, people have realized that, hey, if I can just travel a few hours away from home and, vacation in a cabin or the beach or just somewhere that's different, I'll do that, right? I'll pay money. So a lot of us has probably taken advantage of something like that. And so I know a lot of people that have looked into this, short-term rental, vacation rental, second home type of opportunity. And those are also, because they're typically residential, easier to purchase, easier to get financing for most of those types of properties. But, there's more turnover, as far as the cons of them. You've got people maybe coming and going every week or every 2 weeks or every few days. And so, there's more abuse on the property because they don't care. It's a hotel, right? It's a hotel. Yeah. So the sheets are getting washed a lot, the towels, the walls are getting dinged, things like that. And there's a lot more oversight and management, to that, because you're really running and operating a hotel.
Right.
The recession-proof piece of it, right? That's always something that's a concern, is what happens if people can no longer afford to vacation, right? How will that be affected? So of course, that's a different part than, say residential, where people need a place to live full term, like an annual lease. But there's a lot of different options when it comes to these long-term investing. So yeah, you can kind of dabble in, and each one of us has our own interest. And each buyer that we work with is going to have their own interest of what is, what works for them really, and what they're interested in. Now, some people may be going, yeah, but I don't want to deal with people, right? I don't want to deal with
You're in the wrong industry then.
Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah. But it's just, I don't know. Sometimes, it wears on you, and people can be rough, I guess is the word. And so the beautiful thing about investing in real estate is you can always pass that off, right? You can hire somebody else to do that. So if you buy an investment property, and I'll tell you, this was kind of my backup plan when I bought my first investment property, I didn't know if I was going to like being a landlord or not. So you always want to have that plan B. And my plan B, I already had a property manager lined up. So if I didn't like it, and if I didn't want to deal with the day-to-day, I had a property manager that I could just say, hey, you take this on. I'm going to pay you, you deal with it. And that is something really in every purchase, an investor, in my opinion, should have the financial piece built in to pay a property manager. Because whether I'm paying that piece to myself to manage it or paying it to a professional property manager, I want to have that ability that, you know, if I decide to, I don't know, retire and travel the world or whatever, right? I can do that by easily just passing that off, right, to someone who will do that. So, you know, taking this and considering it on it, and by the way, there's lots of other tax opportunities as well for long-term passing it on, if you would. So, you know, it doesn't even have to be hiring a property manager to do this. There's opportunities to pass these properties on to children, or, you know, inheritance and you know, opportunities along that line as well. So, you know, my husband and I have made ours really a family business and incorporated in our children. And now I have adult children that are becoming landlords and of their own and getting into this. So it's great to see them building that wealth opportunity as well. Because when they were kids and having to pick up trash at some of these properties, they were going, we don't want anything to do with this when we grow up.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. Until they realize that it would make them money, then they're interested.
Bingo. That's exactly it. Then they go, this isn't so bad after all. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think there's really two parts of this, right? We can invest for ourselves, and we can also help our buyers invest for themselves as well. So, you know, of course, investing for ourselves, you know, we're seeing the market firsthand. You know, we know the market. Why wouldn't we want to invest in our own career, right? Why wouldn't we want to buy real estate and really be a part of that? One of the great things I think owning real estate has done for me in my real estate career was provide me with that like stability of income, right? We're in such a high and low business with sales and with income that with owning real estate investments, though there's still highs and lows and, you know, there's still ups and downs, it gives you just more stability than solely relying on those commission income. And it just makes you, it gives you the ability to make better decisions, right? You don't feel so pressured to make bad choices in transactions because you need that sale to happen. And that's really, to me, that's really super important to keep all of us out of trouble. But, you know, the other thing is it helps us with these buyers, right? Because if you're looking as an investor to purchase a property, wouldn't you want to work with someone who's been there and done that and they're an investor? Yeah, it makes sense. And so I've had a lot of investors over the years who I've worked with and helped purchase properties and become investors and blossom on their own because they came to me and they said, listen, you've done this. Can you help us? Can you show us the way? Can you teach us? Can you, you know, again, kind of mentor us through this process, just like someone mentored me through the process and taught me. And yeah, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, I've had a couple of those people over the years that then turned around and came back and said, hey, I'm ready to move on now with my life. You know, for whatever reason, they moved out of the area, or they, you know, just had a change of season, I call it. Something happened in their life that they changed seasons. And they come back to me and said, listen, I'm going to sell my portfolio. Will you buy it? Okay. So now I actually own the properties that I sold them umpteen years ago because, you know, they've been ready to move on. And so I think it does help us help them in that aspect as well and help us represent them. So working with these property owners is very different than working with a traditional homeowner. And that's one of the things I think I love the most.
Really?
So, you know, when you walk into a property with a home purchaser that's going to occupy and live in the property, they're looking at where they're going to put their furniture, and they're looking at, you know, the color on the walls, and they're, you know, and of course, as an investor, I'm like, you can change all that, right? I'm thinking in the back of my mind, this is, you know, simple enough to do. Well, as an investor,
as a buyer's, but as a buyer's agent, you also should be telling them that too, right? Because they're not supposed to get hung up on that either.
Yes, but that's hard sometimes, especially if they're a first-time home buyer, because that equals money, right? And they don't have a lot of money to spend. So they're, you know, they're just trying to like figure it all out, make it work.
Yeah, that's true.
But when you're working with an investor, they don't care about any of that. They could care less about the color of the carpet. I mean, if the carpet's purple, okay, I can change that, right? It doesn't matter.
Right.
So, they're looking at the bones, they're looking at the numbers. It's really all about the finances and the numbers, and does it work, and what can I rent it for? Or, what's the goal? Every investor does have a different goal. So I'm the long-term investor, the retirement, the 401k, whatever you want to call that. Some investors do want to invest for the short term or the shorter term and then sell for the appreciation, or whatever, just different reasons that they have. Some investors want the monthly cash flow immediately, some don't. And it's important for us to really sit down and interview our buyers, just like we do with any other buyer, and make sure that these investors, we have a good, clear understanding of what their goals are, and then we help them achieve that goal in any aspect. Most investors do not want a negative cash flow. Now, some do, and there's some tax reasons why they would, but most investors are not in that situation. And what I mean by a negative cash flow is, if they're going to buy a property that, let's say, has a positive cash flow, it produces $100, let's say, a month, positive. After, the mortgage is paid, the rent is paid, the expenses, the taxes and insurance and all that's paid. They're going to have an extra, let's say, $100 a month left over when that tenant pays the rent. That's a positive cash flowing property. But if they're in, let's say, a negative situation and they go, well, it's only, $100 a month that I'm in the negative, I can afford to lose $100 a month and pay that out. That's only $1,200 a year. I can afford that to be able to own the property. Sometimes people do this for egos. They do it for the wrong reasons, I guess. I don't know. People just do it. The problem comes in when the roof starts leaking, and now all of a sudden they have to replace or repair that roof, and now there's $10,000 worth of expenses. They don't always think about that, and that's where we can go in and look and say, what about the roof? What about the plumbing? What about the electrical? What about these bones of the house, the windows, all those big expenses? We really need to look at that and the structure of it. Because I've had to, as an investor, you have to do all that stuff eventually over time. Some investors want to rehab their own properties. Some don't, right? They want to buy it totally done. So again, that really depends on the investor themselves and going through the interview process and really understanding that. So I think being an investor can help us, gain more business, because if we share that, we kind of market that, and we can attract those investor buyers to us to be able to help them. But and then again, it also helps them as buyers to say, look, we've been there, we've done that. We can help you through this process and really educate you on that. So, which I've written a couple books on this, as you know, and the books are available actually in the Realtor library. So just if anyone is interested in kind of learning a lot more about that, learning more about my story and how I got started in a lot more detail, but also learning about just investing as a whole for real estate, my books are available on the Realtor library that any member can check out at no cost. It's part of a member benefit. So definitely you can go onto the Realtor library and check that out. And I know that we have some other resources too that the members can check into. So Michelle,
Yeah. So, Cynthia mentioned the Realtor library is an amazing resource. And we were talking earlier how it's got even some resources that aren't even related to real estate. So if you're looking for, Cynthia said everyone needs a break sometimes. So if you're looking for something a little different, there's other options as well. But definitely check out Cynthia's books. And then actually a different resource for members is the Realtor store. And sorry, I don't know if you can hear, they're practicing for the Air and Water show right now. So there's a huge jet going by. I apologize if you can hear that. So in the Realtor store, we actually have a toolkit specifically about investing. There's a REBAC elective course about investing, and this toolkit kind of takes the important worksheets from that course. And actually, you can purchase that and use those worksheets, however you need them. And we actually have a whole set of toolkits. Sorry, we actually have a whole set of toolkits in that Realtor store. They are, related to the ABR course and the some of the other electives as well. So go ahead, Cynthia.
And I actually have a cash flow worksheet that I use when I'm working with my buyers or I'm working with myself to evaluate properties to see if they will cash flow, if you would. So this cash flow worksheet goes through the evaluation of the property. You plug in the numbers and you plug in the expenses, and it can kind of, it's a great tool that you can use to basically share with your buyers, but also again do that evaluation. And I will give that cash flow worksheet to anybody who wants it. So Michelle, I'll give you a code. They can go and they can download it from my website at no cost as a member benefit. So how about you want them to comment in the video link on Facebook?
Yeah,
if they're interested.
Yeah, how about, yeah, if you're interested, if you want to comment on the video, give us your email address, and then we can send that information over to you. And you can take a look and use it for your own business. So that's pretty exciting. Thank you, Cynthia.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, so someone asked a question, are these resources in the NAR library or the ABR site? So I know we talked about quite a few things. So just to clarify, the NAR library is where you can find Cynthia's books. And then we've got the Realtor store, which is, I believe, store.realtor is the URL. And if you just search for CRD, you'll see our toolkits. And that includes the investing one as well. So thank you for everyone who's dropping their email addresses. I'm very excited for you to get this exclusive resource. So, and another thing that I wanted to mention too, Cynthia talked about, second home properties. And I do just want to touch on our resort and second home property specialist certification. And actually, we are holding a live virtual course on September 15th with Brett Brown and Holly Mabry. And there is an early bird rate that's still available right now, just until the beginning of September. So if you're interested in taking the RSPS course, great time to do it, especially because the application is discounted. It's half off. So it's an amazing time to earn the certification because you could take the course live and virtual, and it doesn't matter where you are. Also then if you're ready to earn the certification, that's half off. So really it's a win-win all around. And I hope that everyone takes advantage of that. I don't see any questions. I see people leaving their email addresses. Thank you. I'm very excited to share the resource with you as soon as possible. And I think that pretty much wraps things up for us. So thank you so much, Cynthia, and to everyone for joining us. We hope you are now feeling inspired to invest in yourself and help your buyer clients. Please join us next month on September 13th with Lynn Madison. See everyone next time.